Hi everyone, it's great to see you. We're hoping to enlighten you on some new things that we're bringing forward.
So, first off, thanks for hanging around, listening to us. Um, Abacus Insights, early stage company. We've been around about 18 months. Took a couple of weaves through technology, ultimately landing in a very forward-leaning cloud-native architecture. So, using most of the managed services we can get our hands on, really doing that for availability and time to market.
How many of you have made the data tell you different things? And sometimes you have an intent when you're coming out. So we wanted to start out with a little bit of light humor there. Does this resonate with anyone? Torture the data?
Right here. All right. So from our point of view, we're primarily in the healthcare space. So we work with payers. Sorry. These are the people that process your enrollment. They manage your claims process. They basically make sure that all of the people in the world are getting access to the healthcare that they need, right? When you go out and look across this space, the pervasiveness and uniqueness and obscurity of all of the data that is used to actually run those organizations, it's their lifeblood, it's oil, right? Like without it, the world doesn't spin around, right? Like your bills don't get paid. You're not enrolled, you're not covered, stuff like that. And so, when you kind of look at it from a very pervasive issue, it became very obvious to Doug and I when we were putting together the Abacus platform that data was central, right? This was the key tenet of our value proposition. Yeah? Anything, Dave?
Yeah, I think too, you guys, you'll have seen that there have been a number of major changes. Probably in the last 10 years, you've seen cloud computing and the centers by Azure, AWS, and Google really take a mainstream focus. The other thing is you see that there's been a proliferation of new data coming from all over, and additionally, a wide set of new capabilities that you can do pretty amazing things with. The key is that if you can, with the combination of the cloud, its technologies and our own, you can coalesce and bring data together from many different diverse sources and expand it out very well. So I think that the challenge too is that a lot of the companies that have been around, prior to 10 years back, are still trying to make the gateway. They want to be able to harness it. So part of as we're going through today, with the architecture we brought forward, and then some of the key facets, you'll start to see that the possibilities of bringing in clinical, PAN, consumer, devices, all together and coalescing them with public data too is very much a reality in today's world.
Yeah, thanks for that, Doug. So, what is it that we're doing and why does it matter?
There you go, Jeff.
Yeah, so these variety of data sources that Doug was referring to, again, various stages of maturity, various stages of contemporary technologies in place, and essentially trying to drive all of that stuff for day-to-day operations of a business, right? Primarily around healthcare. This industry itself, slightly behind the times in terms of what infrastructure actually powers this in the United States. Why we're here and our whole reason to be is to bring them forward so that more interesting use cases, the value proposition of the data that's hiding back there, can be realized. In order to do that, you've got to take them on a technology evolution, right? And as we've been building and designing our platform, these are essentially the domains that we've taken on, right? there's a very very sensitive need around how every single record in a 6 terabytes is processed, because it's a human life. For example, a bad diagnosis code that yields a call to the wrong person in their home and terrifying them that they have something that they don't, or in the other scenario where someone who needs to be informed that they need immediate care, you can't get it wrong, right? So processing the data through, they refer to this as lineage. This is absolutely critical so that we're not losing anything.
So I think on this, there's a few key points. One, we really are leveraging a lot of technology-enabled automation. So how many of you have dealt with the wide number of source systems? So a lot of times you'll have different lines of business. You'll have each market segment has its own systems. Each area there has their own protocols. So a lot of what we're doing at the beginning here is actually utilizing technology-enabled automation, tying in machine learning with natural language processing so that we can actually evaluate the source and our domain model, which is a very rich one, which we'll get into, actually identify the profiling of the data automatically with some moderation, identify the quality refinement from our library, and then actually map the data together, taking what could be a very long cycle and moving it to a very short. And then as we come in here, one of the key points is when we're transitioning the data, we're capturing it through a pre-quality phase there, then we're running quality refinement. Then as we get in, we're running semantic curation, because when you're doing analytics and work there, you want to be tied to the most prevalent standards, RX norm, LOINC, SNOMED, because you want to have orange apples to apples. And then here, so we preserve all this rich data comes in, fine-grained atomic, preserved into different subject areas. And then what we do here is actually enable you to create with your own tools, your own data marts, your own visualization use cases, apply your own rules and logic. The other key thing is that when we consume different sources, such as medical claims, we're consolidating Medicaid, Medicare, commercial, all the systems into one entity, and we're applying a lot of contextualization to the data that really aids in applying the analytics.
Yep. Thanks, Doug.
So on this one here, one of the key points is our mission as a company is for really the betterment of patients and members. That's one of our guiding areas. And if we can unlock the data, take away the silos, bring the data in very quickly with curations, we can obtain a single view. So if you think about a patient or a member, they're going to multiple doctors. They've got multiple clinicals being done. They're wearing wearables such as Fitbit. They're getting different data there. By the way, they have social economic data and other data that's being recorded in public systems. And you can coalesce and bring all of that together into a single view of members and patients and really provide services and abilities in near real time to help them. So I think one of the things that we're leveraging a lot, and we like from an Amazon perspective, the AWS step is very good, stepwise, for allowing us to break up large programmatic events. Pairing that with Lambda, we can do these on demand. Now, as we fetch data from our domain model there, we can then introduce that data to both machine learning capabilities, and we like SageMaker a lot, and essentially moderate and create SageMaker ML models. The moderation levels, you're presenting results, you're training from there. Additionally, one of our key areas, we talked about the semantic enrichment. So the Comprehend Medical itself is quite good. The Comprehend Medical also provides you a direct interface with the OMOP Common Data Model, which in itself holds about 50 ontologies. So utilizing AWS's, we can join this through many data pipelines as subordinated work and actually do the enrichment on demand through that factory model that Jeff showed earlier. I wanted to pause. Does that make sense with our teams here? We can further automate in each area, getting greater and greater accuracy, starting out where you're here and moving to there. So one of the things that we've done, you guys, first of all, how many, you guys are in healthcare, so you obviously, how many of you are aware of FHIR and the interoperability standards that are coming out? This is a big area because the new rules will probably guide us further to FHIR. So one of the strategies that we took initially is we put together a very rich taxonomy in how we would organize the data in a framework. And then we introduced an area where we deal with all sorts of different types of events. We have clinical events that we talked about. Right now we've got about 22 of those that are point in time. Insurance administrative events that are coming in, consumer events, and public data. So these are constantly coming in. As they're doing that, we're actually stripping off elements of the transactions if we're not getting masters, and actually deriving the different types of people, the different types of organizations that are coming in, and then we're doing mastering and record linking through that process Jeff highlighted there to fully get a single view of each area. We're also keeping in very rich reference data, very rich on the product side. So even on the public data, we're now looking at 360 sources of public data that we're consuming to create benchmarks, to create pseudo statistical cohorts for analysis there. This is an example. So when I brought up FHIR, the way we operate here is that each one of those subject areas is a rich JSON definition that includes a lot of metadata. So we're generating over 60 of these currently right now. So the schemas and everything. So so I would say in some ways we've taken FHIR's model. We integrate well with FHIR in and out, but we've brought a model together that not only includes the clinical, very similar to FHIR, but also brings in all of the payer subject areas, all the consumerism. So it's a very broad, very deep model. The way it operates is that we don't know a lot of times what our clients' use cases are. They may be using 5 or 6 subject areas. They might be using 50 for different areas. So the way we achieve multi-system support is we keep each one of these subject areas as a superset. So medical, for example, PBMs, it's massive. It covers things such as Prime Therapeutics, but then you get into Optum, they're a smaller grain within that. But all of the data is commonized into the same structures and curated around there. That's how we're able to bring it together. Now this is actually expressing one of the JSON definitions. So on the JSON, we use it for 2. We use it controls the specifications for all the connectors that we're bringing in. So we're able to create reusable high bandwidth connectors using our JSON specifications to drive them. Now what we do with our clients then is if there's a variability in an area, we'll put in, I always got to be cautious on this word, shim or an adapter, so it translates it. So one of the examples is we pull in 7 to 8 different payer sources at once: medical claims, dental claims, vision, pharmacy, authorizations, enrollment, benefit eligibility. That's one connector we're consuming. We can consume millions of records at one point in time. As it comes into our system, it actually spreads out in parallel. So each one of those is being processed independently for throughput. So I think that gives you a unique area on metadata there. I wanted to close a little bit because, how many of you are? Well, I'm a germaphobe sometimes. So someone says, "Oh, hey, there's a new infectious disease coming around, new area there." So I kind of go back in time and I think about the Spanish flu, which wiped out a large portion of the world. we're now at a place using the same kind of models that we're bringing forward for Abacus, where you can actually intercept Baidu in China, Google, you can get all the clinical laboratory data that's coming in from the epidemiologist in near real time, and you can get crowdsourcing. Combining these elements together, you can actually surface a potential infectious disease well before it gets out. And you can actually then identify the affected population, quarantine them, and restrict it. So this is a kind of a so what when you take the data. This is real-time consumption of data across geographies with immediate actions to actually help people. So I wanted to whet your curiosity on Abacus. Are there any questions that Jeff or I could answer? We have our own data model, but the way we
Sorry, the question, just to repeat the question, have you created your own data model?
We did. We created it, but when we designed our data model, we relied, one, we had tremendous industry and domain knowledge, but the other part of it is we were very close. When we were looking at clinical, we were very deep on clinical HL7, CCDA, fire. Same thing from the insurance side. We were very deep, so that those standards drove our clinical work. Our insurance admin was a large effect defined by ANSI EDI standards and then expanded from there. And we also surveyed a lot of the premier models that were out there for insight. Yes, our data model is one consistent with fire, and we actually we broadened it a lot for the subject areas we were covering, and and with OMOP we actually curate the semantic data around to include the ontology mappings and the vocabulary mappings. So you've got a one to many on ontologies there.
Is Abacus High Trust certified?
That's a good, I am actually our acting CISO. We are in the final stages. We've actually gone through our pre-cert work. So we're actually going for both High Trust and SOC 2. We use the High Trust Common Security Framework as our baseline, and then have triangulated out NIST, ISO 27001, and HIPAA. With that, we're just going through, we anticipate going through our High Trust certification in Q1 of next year.
Any other questions?
How do you manage the patient identity in your data?
You manage patient identity.
Patient. So with patient identity, there are multiple levels. So generally, what we do is we set up surrogate identifiers, four members, four patients, as part of our system, using more of a UUID mechanism there. With the patient identity, then you have 18 identifying characteristics on the patient. So in terms of that, the data as it is right now stays within the walls of our clients. So we set up individual client VPCs for each one of our clients because there's a concern on the payers of commingling data. On the identity, then, we will be implementing some anonymization techniques for the data where we can anonymize, use the surrogate identifiers, but be able to provide that data. Really, we don't own the data on this, so it would have to be our client's discretion. But if they elected to provide the de-identified data to life sciences for research, we would do it applying that technique.
Over here.
Hello, how you doing? I just have a quick question about your high trust certification.
Yeah.
So, and is it just high trust you're doing? Are you doing SOC 2 or ISO or any of the?
It's high trust SOC 2
High
combined.
trust stock too. Okay, perfect. So my question is to obtain that process, and I caught the tail end of what you were saying. You're just going through it, or you're just getting certified. How many individual spreadsheets or Word documents do you think that you've collated in order for you to be certified SOC 2 High Trust?
That's an interesting question.
Tens, 50, 100, 1,000, roughly.
Well, in terms of controls, our overall controls are a bit over 500 controls
Okay.
right now.
Right.
But we've been managing those controls themselves with a spreadsheet, but we are shifting now to utilize a tool set called Jupyter One,
Okay.
where we can bring in all of our artifacts there, manage both our final pre-cert activities and our controls and our gathering through there, but then also use that with our auditors, so they'll have direct access to it.
Okay. So let's say that you didn't have that tool, because I don't have that tool. How many documents am I expected to create, manage, maintain to get certified, roughly?
Hundreds very easily. Hundreds in a data room, in a cert. But I think we will reduce that with our work. We're pretty much, we run a lot of our activities electronically, which which simplifies it. But yeah, hundreds of documents traditionally. Having gone through it a couple times,